All right. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, welcome. This is I don't know if I really want to call it a course because I don't know if you can really make a course for happiness because it's something that's not easy to define. And of course, it's also something that will be different from one person to another. All right. Because we are not only are we all different, but we're also living under different circumstances. So there are so many factors involved with happiness. And maybe you can even discuss, or maybe you can even debate whether there is such a thing as happiness, if it's real. Because, can you just check the sound? No, in your phone. Thank you.
You send a link to me. Yes.
Yeah, I did. All right, we're just going to have a quick sound test before I continue. Just want to make sure I'm not wasting a. Okay, yeah, that's fine. All right. Okay, so like I said, some people might debate whether there is such a thing as happiness, and uh, okay, and maybe happiness is not really the correct word because there are so many. Um, how can I say aspects or what do you call it? Understandings. Let's say that. Let's call it understanding. Because, like, peace, if you are having peace, inner peace, is that happiness? If you are content, satisfied, is that happiness? Right? And another thing is, you might have moments of happiness or peace or contentment and moments where that is completely gone. So that's the thing, right? First of all. And then whatever we want to call it, so we call it happiness. So let's stick with that word, all right? Happiness meaning peaceful inner peace, contentment, satisfaction, whatever is inside that word of happiness. Excuse me. Now, first of all, it's clear, we know that scientifically, that is chemical. Okay. How we feel is very closely connected with the chemical balances in the brain. Okay. And even our emotions, not just happiness, sadness, anger, love, whatever we have of feelings, it's chemical. All right. I mean, it might be an external, physical um, condition, but how we feel about it is chemical. All right. Like dopamine, endorphins, and so on and so on. Right. So, and the same thing is with depression. Right. It's something that has to do with our environment to some degree physically that we react to and that can create these different chemical balances in the brain pleasures and stuff like that, and that's something that we have to realize first of all right. So for us to want to create happiness in our life, okay, we have to set up the conditions, all right? Because even if you are in the best position. Let's say you are kind of into nature, and you go to the mountain and you get the mountain air, and you go and you hear the birds and all of that, and it does create some kind of, okay, there's nobody disturbing you, there's not a lot of noise, and you can feel some level of peace. But you can have 10 different people there, and their level of peace or happiness is 10 different levels, because it also has to do with how much our physical, our spiritual, our mental health is in a good condition, optimal or less than optimal condition. So those things, actually is also something that must be looked at before we can say, I want to be happy. So let me go to live in a little hut, little cabin in the woods, where nobody will disturb me and stress me out and create conflict or toxic situations or whatever it might be. But some people, if they did that, they will start to get depressed. They will feel lonely. They will feel anxiety, even. So it's not so simple to just create our surroundings as how we optimally can imagine that what will make us happy, first of all. And also, even in that condition, that will also change, because there are a couple of things. Number one is, we might think, if these things, if my surroundings become such and such, I live in such and such kind of house, I have these specific kind of people around me, and whatever you eat, and all of those, whatever you can do in your you know personal space and your personal environment, excuse me, that this is what you think. But then when you come into that situation and everything is exactly like that, you might realize that no, that did not create the happiness that you thought it would be. So there's so many things, all right? And one of the reasons for you are making that what do you call it, environment exactly what you thought was going to give you the happiness, and you don't reach it, could be that there is chemical imbalances, all right? So we have to really be serious and make everything line up in the right way. Okay, we cannot just work on one thing. So in the following videos, I will be talking about the three kinds of health, because there's no way you will really be happy or content or pleased or peaceful if you are not healthy. If your health, for example, your physical health, if you have things that's disturbing you to at the point where where you can say that it's a distracting, it distracts you too much from being able to just you know take in whatever peace you are inside, all right? And at the same time, the physical health, that obviously also physically, the chemical balances has to do with the physicality or with your physical body, right? Because when people are sick and unhealthy for long periods of time, that affects their mental health as well. Not not necessarily so much that their mental health, they become like crazy or some kind of mental disease. That's not what I'm talking about. Of course, that is also possible, but more like, if you have a physical healthy body, the chemical balances in your brain, You produce enough of the chemicals that can make you feel peace, contentment, happiness, and so on. And if you don't have that, it's going to be either impossible for you to actually feel happiness, peace, contentment, and so on, or you will not feel it very much. Or maybe you will feel it for a very short time. All right. It's going to be hard to sustain the feeling. So this is something that is, we really have to take seriously before we start, like, oh, I'm going to try and be happy. And you sure the sound is good? Hello. Okay. I think it's low. Just, sorry, guys. Let me just uh, go into the microphone settings. Input. Yeah, it's a little bit low volume. Okay, can you turn that down a bit? Okay, thank you. Yes. Boom, 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 boom. Input, yeah, microphone. Okay. Yes, all right. It's funny, I don't see the. All right. Well, I'm assuming the sound is fine. All right. So, so we gotta look at the three things, right? And um, because also another thing, I'm a Muslim, and maybe the majority who will watch this video, Indonesian from Grateful Sisters community, might be Muslim, but there will be some who are not. So therefore, I'm going to try to make it more a general understanding. And obviously, there are to some extent that your spiritual happiness, which has to do with your religion, can affect your happiness. But like I said, if you're not physically healthy, it's going to limit it regardless of your religion and spiritual beliefs. And at the same time, your mental health also will be limiting regardless of whatever you might be believing. But of course, your belief also has a factor. All right. And of course, depending on whether you are Christian, Muslim, Catholic, Buddhist, Hindu, or whatever you might be, which is not something that I would go into here because it's going to be too hard to jump from one to the other. And, even though I do know quite a lot about each religion, but it's just not going to be easy to go into those details. It will just make this so long and very complicated, right? Because then I gotta have to. Okay, now I'm talking to Muslims. Now I'm talking, So I wouldn't be going into any kind of religious aspects of this. All right. Maybe I will make some separate videos that has to do with that, but not part of this. So this will be general understanding. All right. Let me turn on the AC here. It's getting a little hot. Can you close those doors there? Thank you. All right. So let's start with the first step. All right, which is the physical health. All right, because you forget about everything else. That is number one. Right. That's the first thing you must look at. And as a doctor, all right, I know that. Okay, that is, it's very difficult to try and heal people if their physical being is not being healed as well. So, those two are very closely connected, the physical health and the mental health. All right. And so we have to look at the physical health. So, all right. Number one, which is the physical health. Now, the first thing we look at is our body, obviously, what we eat. Okay. And without going into this is going to be about nutrition, no, I'll just say you can just make a couple of rules for yourself when it comes to your diet. The rules are whole food, natural food, without anything that's being added to it, whether it's chemicals or other kinds of things. All right. Of course, too many carbs, too much sugar, and so on will affect your health not in a good way. The fact is, you just got to stick with real food, food that you can identify. All right. Anything on your plate that you cannot point and call it, oh, this is a carrot, or this is rice, or this is this kind of meat, cow meat, or chicken meat, or whatever. If you cannot point, if there's anything on your plate that you cannot point and say, this is exactly this, and it has one name, not, oh, it's a this and this and this and this and this together, that's what that sauce might be. No, if you cannot identify it by visually looking at it, then you should not be eating it. All right. And, you know, there's too much of that kind of food. Okay. And if you say, oh, well, what about potato chips? Right? You know, there are some kinds of potato chips that's sold a lot um, anywhere in the world for that matter, not just in Indonesia. And the thing is, yeah, it's a potato chip, but how, what else is in it? If you look at the package of the potato chips, I don't want to mention any specific brands because they're all bad. All right. You will see like it has maybe 10, 15 ingredients. It's not just potato. No. And even if it was, okay, potatoes and salt, or potatoes and salt and vinegar, or whatever, like, okay, that's acceptable. But you look at a potato chip today, and you will see like there are at least 5 or 6 different things that has nothing, that's not a food. All right. So any kind of thing that you buy in the supermarket or in the market for that matter, and it has a label and there are, you know, 5, 10, 15 ingredients, you should not eat it. All right. I don't think there's, do we have anything that we ever buy that has more than 1 or 2 ingredients, Daisy? Oh, okay. I don't think there is. Do we have anything in the kitchen that has more than 1 ingredient or 2 ingredients? Let me check. Oh yeah, we have a curry spice, because that has like 4 or 5. Like it has turmeric, it has some black pepper, it has a couple of things, but that's a combination of spices. So yes, there is, but that's pretty much what we got. Everything else is 1 ingredient. 1 ingredient. So when you're cooking, you take this ingredient, that's one thing, and another thing, right? You don't take one thing in that actually has a label that shows 5 to 15 ingredients. You stay away from those things. That's the number one thing, because there are chemicals in so much food today that actually affects your brain. We have things like NutraSweet or aspartame. We have MSG, monosodium glutamate, and so many other. And those things, yes, it does bring out certain flavors, but it also is addictive, right? And it has been proven. That's why in some European countries is actually banned, is illegal. You can go to jail if you're selling foods with some of those ingredients in Europe. And so that means that you should not use that. If you can identify it and you can check, like Google it or whatever and search, and if you see any evidence that this can cause a problem, you should stay away from it, right? I mean, most people, they will say, yeah, we know smoking is not good. Yes, it's not good, obviously, but some of the things we eat, it's like smoking 20 cigarettes a day will actually damage your health less than that food, right? If I should weigh smoking 20 cigarettes a day or eating baso every day, I don't know which one is worse. To be honest, I think they are equally bad. So if you wouldn't smoke 20 cigarettes a day, or even 5 for that matter, but how can you eat baso, for example? Yes, I hope I don't get too unpopular because people like baso so much. It's just not, it's not food. All right, it should be banned, honestly, because that's destroy your health very, very quickly, even if it's just once a week, right? So yes, stay away from that. So that's the first thing. All right. The second thing is okay, hydration. All right. This is one. Maybe this is the second biggest mistake. People don't understand hydration. Okay, so what? We shouldn't hydrate? Yeah, we should hydrate. The problem is that there has been like a trend that people buy these big, they carry around these bottles or tumblers or whatever, full of water and keep drinking. And oh, I gotta have 3 liters per day because that's compared to my body weight and my activities. I'm told that 3 liters a day is necessary. That's not true. That's not true. Two things. First of all, nobody, unless you live in a desert and have very physical activity, there's no way you would, or you are a high athlete or something like that, there's no way you would need 3 liters per day, right? Second thing is the way that people drink water. The fact is, you might drink 3 liters or even 2 liters, but you don't actually get 2 liters of water. Because what happens is when you're drinking water that way, what happens? You just go more to the bathroom to urinate, right? To pee. So it goes in and out within a few hours. That water, very, very small percentage of that water actually get absorbed in the body. Okay, that's a fact. So if you really want to hydrate, you need to eat foods that has a high water content. So let's say you're eating um, half a kilo of watermelon, and maybe the water content of that half a kilo might be 350 to 400 milliliter of water. But it's not water, is it? Because it's in the watermelon. So when you're eating it, you feel like you're getting quenched your thirst, but the fact is, when it gets in the stomach, it absorbs much easier. Okay, there are some people who have there's another trend that actually they start the day with some water. There's another trend that actually they start the day with some water and some salt. Yes, and that's not a bad idea. I'm not doing it, but you know, some people are doing it, and I tried it. It didn't make much difference for me because I have so many other ways of dealing with that issue. So if I wasn't having those ways of dealing with it, I might be doing it today. But yeah, that's not a bad idea because you need certain things when you're drinking. So if you can get that while you're eating, meaning from your food, like, if you're looking at the water content of a mango or a banana, or when you're cooking rice, you're eating the rice. If you know, you can think about this, right? If you take a cup of rice that's not cooked and then you boil it, you have the water. Of course, some of the water is steam and it goes out, but actually you see how much does that cup weigh after. Of course it's has, so when you're eating, let's say 2 cups of rice or 1 cup of cooked rice, right? Maybe that's 50, 60, 70% water content. It doesn't seem like it, right? But yeah, it will be absorbed much better in your body. So that's another thing you have to think about, right? And it's just not about nutrition, so I have to be careful. I don't spend too much time talking about that. So those two things: what you eat, how you hydrate, and then the third one, which is extremely important, how you sleep. Okay. Yes. If you want to make sure you are healthy, the sleep is equally important to what you're eating, right? So that means that you can have somebody who is not eating very healthy and somebody who is eating very healthy, and the healthy person might be sleeping for only 6 hours a day, and the not so healthy but not terrible diet person would be getting 8 hours, and that result is making them pretty much even, right? But of course, you want to have the best, so therefore you eat healthy, you hydrate in the right way, and then you make sure you get as close to 8 hours as possible. Try not to go below 7, right? And of course, it's also have to do with what time of the day do you sleep, right? So if you are sleeping, I mean, as much as possible, you have to follow the sun, meaning that, after your last, if you're Muslim, for example, after your last prayer, you should not spend too much time before you actually sleep, right? Because nighttime is for sleeping, right? That's how our biology works. So sleeping is another thing, okay? That's very important. Now, the next thing, those are the three big, big, big ones, okay? Then we have another one that we really have to be very careful with because it is a silent, invisible killer. Wow, what is this? This sounds like some drama, right? But the fact is, we have an environment today that is very, very toxic. And it's toxic in so many ways, right? Really, I mean, it's not easy. And yeah, if you really want to get rid of all of those things, I think it's going to be almost impossible, if not impossible. So let's start with those things that can affect you to get healthy enough that you can actually lead yourself to become happy. Okay. So let's start with, we are living in a city, most people, pollution. All right. We don't talk much about it, but pollution is there. They try to make cars pollute less by doing different gadgets, and but the fact is cities are polluted because of cars and machines and other things, right? So that's just one thing, air pollution, right? But even inside our homes, we have so many things that even create toxic air. It can be what paint you put on the walls. You paint today, 5 years from now, that paint is still giving off gases if it's certain kinds of paint. Some paints are better than others, right? Obviously. So you have to look at when you're painting inside your house, what is the kind of paint? What are the ingredients in this paint? Even that, all right? So that's just on the walls, and that's pretty much everywhere in your house. Any room you're going to, you probably painted the wall. So that's something to be careful with. Next thing is our furniture. How much plastic? How much? Think about it. How much plastic is on our furniture? It's almost 100% plastic, right? Different types of plastic. Some things more soft, some things more hard to last. It's have lamination on top of it, and maybe there is some kind of wood inside, but then they put a plastic on the top, kitchen counters, you name it. There's so much plastic. And not just are we touching it, it's even releasing gases into the air. That's another factor, right? Then what about clothes? We are wearing clothes, right? Polyester, so many kinds, and no, it's right. You wear clothes that are cotton, wool, silk, bamboo. Now you can get bamboo t-shirts and bamboo this and that, right? Yeah, that's what you do. But then what do? You go to bed and then you're lying on a polyester sheet with a duvet or some kind of cover made out of what? Polyester. And you're putting your head on a pillow made of polyester. So you're spending 7, 8 hours every day or every night wrapped in polyester, right? And you are lying on your mattress, which is mostly some kind of plastic and polyester, right? In your bedroom that has toxic paint in your with your furniture around and all synthetic stuff that can damage your health. And what do? You sleep there 8 hours. That's a third of your life you're spending wrapped in toxic materials. Then what do? You wake up in the morning, you go to your kitchen, and then you have your Teflon pan, you cook on it and you scratch it a little bit and you get some of that Teflon in your body and it's carcinogenic. And yeah, I know there are so many so-called non-toxic cookware, but you also put it into the plastic containers and so on and so on. Yeah, it's terrible. Plastic. Everywhere is plastic or aluminium or other kinds of synthetic stuff. It's not even that easy to actually get the stuff that's not toxic because what do? They make it cheaper. And if you're not rich, you're gonna have to make some compromises and find something that's not too bad, but it's not that good either. Really, it's terrible, right? Yeah, it's really terrible. We are really in a time when, and the fact is, you can say that it's part of, destroying humanity because what happens with some of these plastics, infertility, not just the smoking is part of it, obviously, but our diet, how we have our environment, it all reduces fertility. And, in the Asia, for example, almost all the Asian countries or at least in Southeast Asia, they have an aging population because less and less children are actually born. So it's like, it's going to be a problem 10, 15, 20 years from now. It's going to be a huge problem in Southeast Asia and in many parts of the world, not just around here. So, oh my God, it's so depressing, right? And we are talking about happiness here, right? Yeah, yeah, but that's the purpose, right? The purpose is we need to remove the depressing, all the negative stuff so we can get through to where we are in a happier state. And how do we do that? We exclude those things that are not good for us. All right. We are on 33 minutes. Okay, I'm trying to make this not too long. All right, let's see now. What is the next thing? So yeah, so that's the physical health. All right. So you have to find ways, and we have some courses, and we have some videos and club. We have the anti-aging club and other things where I go into, like for example, healthier diet. I don't know if we still have the Dr. Hassan Healthy Cooking, but I think we do have it in Graceful Sisters. Do or what?
It's in the Google Classroom that we will move.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure that it's available because otherwise I have to talk too much about that here, and I want to get to the next point. Then we have another thing. So we go to the physical health now. That's how I just explained, and now we want to go to the mental health. And like I said before, it's dependent on our physical health. You cannot have a healthy mind if you don't have a healthy body. It's impossible. because you have to be able to produce these chemicals in your brain. All right. So therefore, start with the physical health. Now, oh yeah, exercise. Let me not skip that one before I go to. But you can say that it's kind of related to the mental health as well, because when we are exercising, okay, and of course, we have to choose what form of exercise fits us the best. All right. So you might run, you might run, it might be your thing, or you might go on a bicycle, or tennis, badminton, golf. All right. And if you don't have a habit already of doing some kind of exercise or sport, you should, if you have to decide what to do, you should try and find something that you can do consistently, because when it comes to physical health, consistency is very important, because otherwise it will be going up and down and up and down, and you will take a break because, oh, I don't have time to go, so I have to go, it takes an hour to go to the golf course, right? And then I play golf and it's expensive, so I only get to do it once a month. Well, then, okay, you, not that you should stop playing golf if that's what you're doing, but you should find something else additionally so you can be doing it consistently, right? So find the thing that's easy for you to do, that affordable, that doesn't, you don't have to get to be such very, very good at it before it's, worth your time. Find something that is easy to do, cheap, and you can do it without having to go and get equipment and, or a lot of equipment. So find that thing that suits you. Now, if you have a good diet, you hydrate properly, you sleep well, and of course, that's another thing we talk about the sun as well, because you need sunshine. All of these D3 vitamins you can supplement and all of this, please stop it. Get some sun, get some sunlight. You just need 5 minutes a day. Go find somewhere you can stand and the sun can, in the morning or in the late afternoon. All right, best in the morning though, because you need it. D3 supplement, it doesn't help, right? It's not effective. And it costs a lot of money too. Okay, so, and sunshine is free most of the year anyway. So do that. And also, because the thing is, another thing, when you're having good diet, you do your exercise, it creates pleasure. Okay, it creates endorphins, dopamine, it creates all those good chemicals in your body after some time, especially if you get it consistently done. Okay, and then you add sun in the morning, right? If you have to do something, go and sit in the sun and do it, like correcting papers from your class if you are a school teacher or something like that. Find a place to sit, right? And yes, if you can't get in the morning and you do it at noon, the sun is a little bit more, you know, damaging, but it's still, okay to get that sun. You just don't sit there for an hour. You just sit there for 5 minutes. No matter what time of the day, if you're just giving 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum, you won't get sunburn. You won't get any negative effect from it. To get real negative effect, it's going to be like 30, 40 minutes before that actually happens. So 5, 10 minutes is fine. Okay. I have never heard of a single person ever to get sunburn within a few minutes, right? Unless you are in some weird places on the earth, like a desert or something. Or if you are in at the water, because sometimes you get double effect from the water reflection and the sun at the same time. So that could be a little bit likely to happen. But okay, so if we're doing those things, all right, good diet, hydrating, sleeping, exercise, and hopefully get some sunshine. And sunshine is should not be underrated. I would say all those five, as not saying that sunshine is as important as the sleep, but I would say it's just like the hand. You can see they're not that much difference in, in length, right? The fingers. So, so let's say diet is number one. Then we got sleep. Then we got exercise. Okay. Hydration, sun. Let's say that. Those five. All right. And I'll tell you something. And you, of course, in Indonesia, you don't have that, at least not to that extent. But you can see in northern countries like Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway, they have times of the year, and also North America like Alaska and Canada. You will see sometimes of the year the days are slow. Sorry, are short. Okay, so that means that you actually have parts of the year where there is basically no sunshine for weeks and sometimes even months. And you will actually see that alcoholism is more frequent, depression, suicide, and they are all coming from lack of sunshine. So it actually has a very important factor in your body that you get sunshine, not just for the D vitamins, but also for what sun and light does to your body. That's a very important part of it. It's not so that's why I'm saying, just popping some D3 vitamin supplement is just not gonna help much, right? It's better than nothing, but you cannot compare that to, replacing for sunshine. So those are very important now. So now we are going into the mental health aspects, okay? And mental health, okay? How do we start looking at that? All right. First of all, like some of those guys says, start with, cleaning up your room or making your bed. Yeah, what does that mean? That's a funny thing to say, right? But the fact is, it's an analogy of getting your life in order. Organize yourself physically and also time wise, meaning, organize your time properly so you can, do the things you need to do so you can reduce the stress you have of always trying to catch up, because that's one thing that in a busy society we always lagging behind because the time is always a factor, right? um yes. um so let's talk about that. All right. I have some books I'm going to talk about. One of them is this book here, Atomic Habits. I'm pretty sure there is a Bahasa Indonesia version as well. I don't know if the translation is great or what, but this is a great book. It's a good place to start. But some other books, Getting Things Done, uh, what do you call it? Bullet Journal, the book, right? The book Bullet Journal. There's a couple of other books, and maybe there's a couple of specific women's books that's also, good when we're talking about trying to get happy. There's a couple of books that Daisy got recently, and I'm hoping we can maybe she can bring that up in the book club and talk about it, because those are books that I recommended her to read, because they are good at the same time, because one thing is to organize yourself, but also to figure out what are important things in your life, right? Because we can easily organize, or not easily, it's not that easy, but we can organize our life and end up getting organized with a lot of things that we shouldn't really prioritizing. So it's very important to do those two things at the same time, because you can get happy and peace if you are stressed out with your work, with your family life, and your time is, you're overwhelmed. That's impossible, right? So, besides being healthy physically and mentally, you also gotta reduce the things that can create this chaos in your mind. Because if your mind is not settled, and it's just stressed out or depressed or whatever, because you can't manage your life easily, then how are you going to find peace and happiness? That's going to be very difficult, obviously. So that's another thing. And I'm not going to go into the details, but there are books such as, like I said, Atomic Habits. I think it's a very good place to start. It's a very good book, because it explains. Um, it's a, Actually, it says so right here: an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. And I'm not finished with it. As you can see, I read, like, what is that? A little bit more than a quarter of it. But already I'm very impressed. It's a very, very practical book, and there's even a workbook that you can buy as well, and you can get this in the marketplaces like Tokopedia, Shopee, and whatnot. And you don't have to buy the original book for like 350,000. You can get like around 55,000. You can get like one that's printed from a PDF, but the quality actually is actually pretty good. As you can see, it looks like the real book that you might buy from Amazon or somewhere like that. So I'm very pleased with it. And there's a bunch of good sellers on the marketplace that's selling these books now. You can get almost any book, but we'll bring that up later in the book club about these different books. So yes, so part of this path, this journey to happiness in the book club about these different books. So yes, so part of this path, this journey to happiness, you basically have to, also organize your life in a way that can be conducive or easy to give you an environment in your life where you can control your emotions and your environment, and you somehow can get into finding the peace in the chaos, because life is chaos pretty much. We have so many things, the world crisis now, we got the fuel problems and blackouts, and there's plenty of reason to be stressed and depressed, right? There are so many reasons, good reasons, to not be happy. There's, right? It's not going to be, oh, let's do like this and this and this, and now we can make ourselves happy. No, first of all, you got to get rid of the reasons not to be happy first, right? That's the first step, right? That's like, somebody eating junk food every day. How do you get them healthy? Well, first of all, you cannot just feed them healthier food. You have to get them to stop the junk food, right? Even if it's a step by step process, they still have to get rid of the bad things. They have to get rid of the junk food or the smoking, or whatever it is that is not good for their health. Otherwise, because obviously junk food is addictive, and all of these other things that is bad for you, many of them you're doing because you can't stop, because it's hard to, because it's too easy, and eating ice cream and chocolate and all the hell. Yeah, it's like that. And that's how our life is. That's why some companies make a lot of money, because oh, right, advertising, bad stuff, right? So that's another thing we have to look at. How do we put our life in a way that can make peace, create peace, okay? And then make it consistent. All right, find those moments, and don't think that you can build your life with all of the things that is necessary, and boom, now you have constant peace in your life, constant happiness. You wake up happy, and you are happy throughout the day, and you go to bed happy. Maybe you can reach that one day, but you cannot expect to jump from no happiness to complete happiness. It's a process. So you have to try and find some tools that can help you to create some few minutes here, and another few minutes here, and another few minutes here. And then you have to find out, because let's say, for example, you are doing something like meditation. There are a lot of good meditation methods, and that can help you to at least create some peaceful 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Maybe you start with 5 minutes. And because you do that 5 minutes, right? Let's say you do that every day. You cannot do more than five. Okay, do five. But those 5 minutes, maybe that helps you after 1 week. It helps you with the rest of your time so much that the next week you might be able to do 6 minutes, because everything else is improved a little bit here and there. And then 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and so on until you reach 20 minutes, maybe, let's say. And during that 20 minutes, because uh, you have some kind of lack of stress and depression or whatever, you feel more peaceful, right? Not bliss or external, right? But at least some level of peace. And you do that, and maybe in the 24 hours that you have in a day, maybe that's the only 20 minutes you have. Don't give it up. That's better, right? Because you can get that at least 20 minutes. It can give you something. That's a tool. And then maybe other things in your life will start making things easier, and you get more content, and you make choices as well. You make good choices for your diet, exercise, and people. Maybe you have to, maybe there are people that you had as friends, but actually they have a bad effect on your lifestyle. Maybe you find better friends that is more, fit into your search for happiness, right? I know I see that a lot in Indonesian culture, that you have people that you have known for a long time, and you call them friends because, well, of course, if it's 20 years you know them, technically you think that's a close friend. Not necessarily so, right? You have to understand that, you cannot make yourself unhappy because, well, you have to behave like this and this and this and this, because that's how you keep those friends. But you have to get something in return, right? So that means that if you have to replace some people in your life, that can end up by replacing them with others or with none at all. If that can increase your peace and happiness, well, that's more important, because, you know, we are born alone and we die alone, right? So if we are not having a certain amount of peace in our life, then we are born, we have a miserable life, unhappy, stressful, depressing life, and then we die. What was that? What kind of life was that? We have to insist. We have to insist. And if it means that there are some people that we might choose to not put our time and effort into because that is not a positive effect on our life, then we do that, right? Be more selective. And doesn't mean that, of course, we have to tell people, oh, you are a negative person, and you don't have to say anything, right? You just make yourself busy with the positive things, right? And then usually it automatically happens that, you're just not involved with those people as much, right? You can still be, polite and, hello, long time no see. And then you get yourself busy with the things that create peace in your life. It's very important. And the fact is, people is one of the big factors. The right kind of people that has a positive effect on your life is, I don't know if it's small, but it might be as important as all the other things, such as diet, exercise, sleep, and people has a huge impact on others, right? So therefore, we have to take that as one of the factors to create this uh, level of peace and happiness in our life. I don't think you can separate peace and happiness, honestly. I don't think you can be happy if there's no peace, right? I don't think that's actually possible. So they have to go together. All right. And of course, this, how much time did I take so far? It's gonna get oh, ooh, almost an hour. All right. So I think I'm gonna stop here because that's like the first part is to understand the physical side of it. Okay. And then um, next time in the next video, hopefully I will try and make it more um, like step by step. Right now it's more like, okay, I'm talking about general factors, big factors. Okay. And then I will go into a little bit more of the details, and each video after this one I will talk about one specific area and how that is, affecting, and maybe what tools in that particular category you can use. All right. So until next time, try and start working on it and think about it. Look at your life and see, okay, where am I when I'm stressed? What people am I around? Did I sleep properly the last couple of days? Because that could be the reason why you're reacting or you're feeling the way you are. Look at it, look at in your life, look at your diet, look at the exercises or effect of lack of exercises and the people, and look at all of those different things, right? And see, okay, am I right now in a period where I'm not happy and I have no peace? Okay, what are those things that is happening right now in terms of sleep, uh, diet, hydration, people around you, and your close environment? How is your home, and so on and so on, right? And maybe reflect on when I was last time I was not feeling depressed or unhappy or whatever I'm feeling right now. How was it? What was the situation like in terms of these same factors? Compare it and see, because you might recognize things that you did not actually think about before. All right. Until next time. Salam alaikum. Let's see, where is the? There we go.